How you doing? It's Scott and John from Tactical, and we're going to talk about a trip to the range today. And regardless of whether it's an indoor range or an outdoor range, there's a couple things that I'd like to share with you that you might want to check out. There's a lot of good range videos out there. You can go to the National Shooting Sports Foundation and check those guys out. They got a couple good videos, and they'll tell you of what to expect when you go to the range. And I really want to go beyond that a little bit and give you some tips that'll help you when you make that first trip to the range, like I say. And it's going to be a combination of etiquette and also protecting yourself. So the first thing that I would do is kind of do a little research about the range itself, and just maybe take a trip over there before you bring your guns over there, and just kind of check out the environment and see what they have going on there. Obviously, you want some people that'll help you out, like the range instructors. You want to make sure that those guys are looking out for you, that they're making sure that the other customers are safe. But at the same time, you don't want them to be overbearing. You don't need a drill instructor format or anything like that. So like I say, maybe go over without your guns and take a trip and see what they're like. The other thing that you want to a couple other things you want to take a look at is that make sure that they have a good air filtration system. Make sure that they have things like accessories for you, ammunition available for you in case you run out. Things like that. Let me talk about safety gear for a minute, okay? A lot of times people will get a gun and they don't really understand what they're getting themselves into as far as a firearm, so budget is always in mind. The same thing comes down to protective gear. Well, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money on protective gear, but one of the most valuable things that you can have is a good set of hearing protection, and I prefer the hearing protection that has some type of electronic device that will block out the loud explosions and will also allow normal communication when the gunshots aren't going off. All right. So these require batteries. They have an on-off switch. They actually have a couple little microphones here, and there's circuitry in here that will allow for the noise to be mitigated or stopped, so you won't hear the gunshots going off, but you'll hear normal conversation. This really allows a really good perspective on how to communicate. The other thing that you can get, and I did with these hearing protection as well, is you can get a gel type ear pad here. And what this gel type ear pad here allows for is it allows for better conformation or conformation between the eyeglass eye bar and the hearing protection, because you don't really want, at the end of the day, is hearing to leak, or I'm sorry, sound to leak in here, and to get to your hearing. You really want to protect your hearing as best as you can. So let me add this as well. If you're a new shooter, expect to be a little overwhelmed with a gunshot. Expect to have that flinch response happen to you. There's nothing wrong with that. People will look at this and they'll flinch, and well, that's the way our creator programmed us. He programmed us to be afraid of things that are noisy, guns that, that you have a bullet coming out at 1,000 feet per second, a hot piece of brass coming out of this side, a flash out the front. You're supposed to be afraid of that stuff. That goes away after a while. It's kind of like an inoculation thing. Spend some time with the gun range. And that's why I kind of suggest, if you're new to guns, go to the range and maybe just spend some time, take a look around before you actually take your gun there. All right. The last thing you can really focus on is a good set of eye protection. And remember that most ranges have ports where they have some armor plating or maybe some plexiglass barriers. What's going to happen when your gun extracts the cartridge, it's going to take the cartridge out, it's going to fling it, it's going to take that brass cartridge case, which is still hot, and it's going to bounce around a little bit, and you don't want to have that cartridge case go either down your shirt, you don't want to have that cartridge case go in between your eye protection and your face where it gets wedged, causes you a burn, right, and causes a distraction where you dance around a little bit or whatever. My best advice is that you go for the ride. If you start getting burned, something comes down here or over here, go for the ride. Keep that muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Keep your finger off the trigger, okay? Just something that you have to work yourself through, okay? The best thing I can do is just explain it to you so that you understand it, all right? The next thing I'm going to talk about is what people don't. So a lot of people don't understand. Well, I'm going to go to the range and I'm going to fire my gun for the first time, and I've never practiced, or I've never even learned how to load it. I've never even read the owner's manual. So first thing I'm going to tell you is that take a look at the owner's manual, read all the safety rules, see what's the most important range, the safety rules for you. take a look at the range safety rules, see what the most important range safety rules are for them, and focus on those guys, all right? The next thing that I would like you to do is before you even go to the range, a lot of people go to the range thinking stuff, well, I'm gonna shoot the gun. Well, do you know how to load the gun? Do you know how to unload the gun? Do you know how to make the gun safe? Do you know where the safe? Do you know how to manipulate it to safety? All of these things are things that you can work out ahead of time in your own home in the absence of live ammunition with a dummy round, okay? This is it's a dummy round. It's just a machine piece of aluminum, and it has a rubber stopper in the back. What these guys do is they just take the place of a cartridge. They don't make the gun work. They don't do anything other than take the place of a cartridge. So if you put this in your gun and you press the trigger, the slide's not going to go back or anything like that. They're a good way for you to get your hands onto the gun and learning how to load, unload, and reload without any live ammunition and the risk of a accidental or unintentional discharge. So what I strongly recommend that you do, when you pick up your gun, you pick up your safety gear, spend some money on electronic stuff, spend some money on some good eye protection that wraps around the side that's going to protect you from that, cartridges and whatnot, and pick up a box of these dummy rounds that are going to allow you, again, to learn how to load, unload, and reload, right? Why would you want to go to the range, spend your time for an hour on a port when you don't even know how to load the darn thing, and you spend all your time loading up the gun and maybe 10 minutes shooting the gun? You can take away all these things, or like learn these things ahead of time before you actually go to the range, okay? So when you go to the range, a couple things that I would ask you to do, or that I would expect that you do, is that you take your gear, you take your bags, you bring them into the port with you if they allow that. Of course, you're gonna have your safety gear on ahead of time. Do all of your administrative stuff. In other words, learn how to turn the lights on the port, learn how to set your distance, learn how to set the target at the right level where it needs to be. Obviously, you don't want the target up so high that you're shooting into the baffles. You don't want the target so low that you're shooting down into the floor, onto the gravel, or whatever whatever the case may be. You basically want that gun or that target to be horizontal with your firearm, okay? So once you have all that stuff set up, then you can start then you can start, concerning yourself with loading and, getting ready to shoot. So when you get that actual cartridge case in your hand, one of the things that I recommend is that you maybe start out with a predetermined amount of rounds of what you put in the magazine. I recommend 2 if you're starting out, maybe 5 if you want to. If you start out with 5 rounds in the magazine, just take the box of the ammo out to the point where you can pinch the sides of the box of the ammo so that the ammo box doesn't fall out. Rotate the box, let those cartridges fall in your hand. When the cartridges fall in your hand, feel them for any imperfections. I'm right-handed, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my magazine, not a clip, right? I'm going to load my magazine with my cartridges. I'm going to hold them in my hand, maybe one at a time. I'm going to stabilize the bottom of the magazine. I'm going to push the cartridge down and into the front like that. I'm going to press it down and into the front. I'm going to take subsequent rounds. I'm going to put it right over top like that, okay? Once I got my magazines loaded up, then I can maybe readjust my shooting gear, or my headphones, or whatever the case may be, and I can get into my shooting position. I can go for my marksmanship or whatever my training plan is, and that brings us up to a good point. What I really recommend is that when you go to the range, I know a lot of people use range time as relaxation and whatnot, and it's maybe therapeutic to you or whatever, but at the same time, you really want to work on your skill sets. So when you go to the range, think about a specific skill set. Maybe look online for some specific targets, or go to the store there and look for some specific targets and do some specific training. Learn about the range systems. Some of those target heads will turn for you. They'll turn and expose themselves for a certain amount of time period. Those are all good training tools where you can work on skill sets. Don't ignore skill sets such as loading, unloading, and reloading. Especially the whole unloading and reloading aspect. You want to work on these things. Even if you have a range that doesn't allow you to draw from the holster, you can still practice reloading. Put a box in front of you when you're on the range table. That can catch the magazines for you, so the magazines don't hit the table and then fall on the range floor, and you have to get the help from an RSO, from a range safety officer, to bring the magazine towards you or anything like that. Those are all things, like I say, that can help you out. You can work on a lot of skill sets in that little tiny port and really make some progress as a shooter. Okay. Well, listen, if you'd like any individual training, or if you'd like us to visit you, where we can share some of these range concepts with you, we'd love to do that. We'd love to talk to you further about these things. If you have any questions about what we're talking about specifically, when it comes down to your first trip to the range. Any comments or anything like that, I'd love to hear from you. And don't be afraid to like and share us on our webpage, and we'll answer anything that we can for you. So next time, we'll talk about some other things when it comes down to more specific things regarding firearms and training and all that good stuff. Hope to see you again. This is Scott and John from T's for Tactical, and we'll see you soon.